Welcome to Middle Fingers Up, the show where we hold our heads high and our middle fingers higher. I'm your host, Kieran McKay. Okay, today I'm so thrilled to be joined by one of Canada's most prominent and versatile DJs, DJ Kav. We all know him. We've all bopped our heads on the Throwback Thursdays, to and from work, on Crowchild Trail here in Calgary, Deerfoot, seeing everyone dancing at the same time. This is the DJ that I have on. Super big fan of his. He's known for his dynamic sets, award-winning talent, and ability to read a crowd, which is my favorite thing about DJ Kav. DJ Kav has made a name for himself in Canada, both in the radio and the nightclub scene, with international gigs, a long-standing presence on radio stations like Calgary's 90.3 AMP and Vancouver's Z95.3. He's also reached millions of listeners and collaborated with some of the biggest names in music. Here we are, DJ Kav. You're here. I'm so happy. It is an honor to have you on the podcast today. Thank you so much for letting me harass you that one Friday when you were DJing and I went to the club. So I'm so grateful to have you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so let's just do a little get to know you. So no thinking, those quick spin questions you guys ask on the radio. So that's what we're going to do. So you just answer and let us know a little bit about you. But it won't be the boxers or briefs kind of thing. It'll just be a little bit more PG. Okay, so vinyl or digital?
Currently or back in the day where I started?
Oh, okay. Well, you just answer how your heart desires. What do you think?
Vinyl.
Vinyl. Okay.
Yeah.
Are you a morning show or like a late night kind of gig person?
Late night.
Okay. So what's your guilty pleasure song? What's your go-to?
Ooh, like personal favorite?
Yeah.
I mean, anything Michael Jackson.
Perfect. I love it. What song makes you want to dance automatically? Like what would bring you out onto the dance floor?
Let's go Michael Jackson, The Way You Make Me Feel.
That is also one of my favorite Michael Jackson songs. I love that. That's awesome. Okay, so do you like to DJ for a small crowd or a packed stadium?
Packed stadium.
Nice. Rihanna or Snoop Dogg?
Now you're getting tough. I mean, come on.
Or, okay, I'll be nice to you because I love you. Or what was your favorite artist to interview? You could, I wrote that on the side because I was like, I wonder if he'll even know which one he'd pick. It's a hard one.
Interview, I could tell you for sure. People I've met is a different story, but interview for sure was Ed Sheeran.
Oh, yeah, that's believable. Aw, that's cool. You guys would be so cute. Your energy together would be so kind in a room together. That would be nice. Okay, so what artists, since we're talking about interview, what artist surprised you the most during the interview? Maybe you didn't expect this about them and then you're like, oh, hey, this is a completely different kind of a process.
Do you want good or bad?
Oh, you know what? Let's do bad, always.
See, I could give you some dirt at least.
Yeah.
I wasn't and I get some heat for this all the time because I do talk about it once in a while. I won't say anything negative, but I'd say my least favorite, big star interview was Selena Gomez.
Oh, wow. I'm surprised.
Yeah.
Wow.
I know she's got a lot of fans and she's got a big fan base. I personally did not have the best time with her.
Okay. Yeah.
I think she was very closed off. There was certain things you're allowed to ask, certain things you weren't allowed to ask. And then literally 24 hours later, she had an interview with somebody else and all the questions were asked that I was like,
what?
Well, that seems weird. Why were they allowed to ask it and I couldn't ask it? So anyways.
Yeah.
That's probably it. You
guys get a lot of that red tape, I would imagine, with your interviews, what you can, what you can't ask. And I guess that's how you know how big the celebrity is. Why, what is that all about?
It totally depends what they're going through. At that time, Selena was going through the whole Bieber thing. So it was nothing about Bieber was to be asked. Most artists are pretty good with answering anything. They just don't want to get into the whole, rumors and drama-filled stuff.
Yeah.
They'll talk about themselves, but they won't talk about Was I at a Diddy party?
Yeah. That's the question lately.
Right.
Not at my dinner table, but a lot of dinner tables, right?
Right.
Okay, I'm going to just like get in the mid. I know we're doing the spin question, but I'm going to stop there. You brought up Diddy. I didn't. Like, what's your thoughts about all this in terms of like, we grew up with this, right? Like all this music, and it's not just Diddy, a lot of these musicians that we kind of grew up with, we love them, we listen to them. And then when stuff like this comes out, it's kind of, you know, your whole moral compass is being tried because you're like, well, this is my past, my music, but then these people were never great all along, or is it true? Is it not? Like, how do you manage all that? Because you spend a lot of time in the industry.
So I think personally, it's a twofold thing. The first one is, where do you draw the line as far as when you play their music, when you don't play their music? For me, like, I don't play R. Kelly.
Okay, I was just going to ask you, when people come up and request R. Kelly, do they request R. Kelly?
Nobody requests R. Kelly.
Yeah, that's done.
He had a couple hits at best, and no one really cares. Diddy's the whole different thing because he's got so many hits. But it's like, can you play Bad Boy then? Like, how long does that narrative go, right? Is it now Mace? Is it Bad Boy? Is it Mariah Carey? So as far as Diddy goes, that's another artist I thought. So the second full thing, sorry. People that have been in the industry for a long time, that have, 1 degree or 2 degrees of separation from Diddy, kind of know what Diddy was about. Like, this is no surprise in the community of like,
that's fair,
music, I would say.
Yeah.
But I remember when the Diddy stuff first came out a few months ago, for the first time, I was one of the first ones at radio being like, we need to pull all this stuff. And usually I'm not because I'm like, listen, we can't give Adam Levine a pass or Kiss at a rock station or the Rolling Stones or Ozzy Osbourne. We play them at rock stations, but we can't play them at certain other stations. And that was always my argument. But Diddy, I thought it was over the top and just ick, right? It was just like the yuck factor. And it was just like, you don't need them. Right. It did make playing clubs a lot harder when you're playing throwback nights. That's for sure. That's the tough thing.
It's like 70% of the playlist, at least.
So Bad Boy, I'll play. Right now, will not play. That's kind of my rule.
That's fair. Yeah, I mean, you must have to go through that with so many different, celebrity, particularly artists, like singers, like just sort of whatever they're being dragged out, their dirty laundry, all these kinds of things, and then it is a big decision, not just a personal, like what you decide to play in your car, obviously is up to you, but when you have so many people tuning in and like what's the message you want to send, it can get a little, I think, sticky with the ickiness because it's like voting, right? Like, where are we at? Who's voting for what side are we on? So it starts to feel weird, but we haven't really, maybe I'm just tuning into it now, but it feels like of the late, we're experiencing more of this on the celebrity end. Like, we haven't really had a whole lot of these kind of controversies and stuff. So it's interesting when you have these sort of artists, and maybe it just feels like that because it's an artist that I grew up with, but either way, it sucks. Too bad. All my songs are also like, my playlists are also dialed down. They're quite thin. So I gotta, you'll have to give me some music recommendations. Do you like when people ask you, or do you get bothered by that? Like, hey, like what's a great song that I should download? Are you like, oh God?
I actually don't. Like, people always ask, why don't you upload your mixes, or why don't you have a playlist, or on Spotify? And I just didn't get into that because I find music such a personal thing, and that moment you may love a song, but the next week you may not. So putting my work out there, and if you listen to the mix down on one Thursday, you might listen to it and be like, oh my God, this is the best. I was totally in the mood. Ludacris Move Bitch is playing and you're on Deerfoot and you're so frustrated. Or it's playing and you're just not in the mood and it's too aggressive and you get angry at me. So it's just kind of like
so true.
Playlists are very mood orientated, and I find that I'd rather just not do it. It's like, I do have people ask me like every week being like, where can I download this mix? Where can I download this? I'm like, you can't. You cannot download it. Once it's played and it's done. Because I try to find the mood of the city, what people are talking about on socials. Is it so-and-so's birthday? Is it end of summer? What is it, right? So
So then what mood are you going into when you're putting these playlists together? Because you're thinking of other people's mood. Do you consider yours too? Or are you more so thinking, what do the people want to hear?
Sometimes I put in my own little like touch in there, as far as like, a few weeks ago, I knew my son was listening. He loves Baby Shark, so I'll pop it in there and I'll just play Baby Shark for him. Or I think in August, he started discovering Black Eyed Peas, I'm a Bee. So I recorded that and I actually mixed it in with the song.
Oh, that's
so I was like,
cute.
okay, this is kind of cool. So he's just kind of, I don't know. So I guess
Yeah.
I put my own touch in there as far as how I'm feeling, but majority is like, how is the scene in Calgary? Is it raining? Is it a rain theme? Is it,
Yeah.
post stampede and people don't want to hear all the artists that they just heard?
Right. Yeah.
So stuff like that, I think. Yeah.
So when I had said your intro, and I totally have ditched the rest of these spin questions now, but this is what I do. I had talked about what I love about you is the way you read a crowd. Like I love how you put the beats together. I have seen you at a club before. This last Friday was the first time I actually talked to you. I've actually called into the radio before though, but your whole ability to read a crowd, and I'm just talking about coming from the mental health field, counseling, like you got to have observation, you're reading a room, you're having tough conversations with people, and you obviously don't want to throw other things out if people are struggling. That's kind of like what you do. You read a room, you read the crowd, you're saying you read sort of what's going on around and what do people need. But you have to be a very attuned person to have a level of awareness to do things like that. So where does the credit go? Who do you give the credit to? How did you get to that place where you have this level of energy and observation where you're like, I just want to make people feel great. And you've gotten so good at doing that. So how did that happen for you? How did you get there?
Well, thank you. I would say a lot of it goes to my brother. My brother was a DJ as well. He taught me when I was really young. And the number one rule he told me was don't ever plan your sets. If you plan your sets, you're going to get bored and you won't last in the industry. So I've never planned a set. I go into every night not knowing what to expect, whether it's a younger crowd, older crowd, festival. And I just kind of roll with it. And I just try to feel what people are reacting to. And I think that's what's kept me so motivated over the years, because I find, and this is nothing against people that plan their sets. I mean, they sound super clean, super tight. It's great. And there's a place for it for sure.
Yeah.
It's just for me, that's not the way I learned.
Yeah.
So, and I say that as almost like a compliment, because I'm always just like flying by the seat of my pants being like, I wonder if this will work. I wonder if this will work. Oh, I bet you they're going to like this. And sometimes it works. And I think that's the fun of DJing on the fly, is that you're always trying to read and gauge what the mood is. And there is nights, and this is hilarious, but there'll be nights at the end of the night, I feel so drained and so wiped out. It's like mentally taking a toll on you. And I know it sounds really cliche. But it's like, wow, I felt like I just ran a marathon because I had to think so much about what's going to work, what's not going to work, right? So I find that probably the best part of my job is to, a tough crowd's the best crowd. Like I love getting challenged, right? Like anyone can go and play a big room, because big rooms are always easier. But if it's a smaller room and it's a one-off or whatever else, and just trying to engage that crowd to keep them there, I find the most challenging and rewarding thing.
That's really interesting. Yeah. The draining thing, let's go back to that. It's not cliche. It's interesting because I think anyone that's in the kind of helping profession or a profession where you do think about other people, it does take a toll out of even when I interview, even when I was working in mental health, there had to be a way to like feel myself in order to go and give and help. So what do you do then at the end of the night or after having a weekend of all this work? You have a family, you have a young child. Like how do you get to this place where you're like, I got to refuel so I can get out there and make someone else's night fantastic next week?
I just think about when I was younger and being like, if I could be a DJ and actually make a living off of it, how grateful I would be. And I've been able to do that for my life. So I'm very grateful for the opportunity. Yeah. Like I just get home and I'm tired. I've never been a big party person. I get home and I'm lights out within 5 minutes. Like I don't get ramped up or anything else. So I get home and I'm like, lay down. If it's really crazy and I'm feeling really wild, I might get a McDonald's or an A&W end of the night.
What do you get? You have to tell me. What's your order? The most important question here.
The most important. Set everything else down.
Yeah.
Well, like something super small just to kind of, because again, you've been working for so long. You haven't been since 6. It's been like 10 hours since you ate. So yeah, I just very grateful for the opportunity to be able to do it for as long as I've been doing it and to be able to engage with people and hopefully make people's night. Like when people walk out, I hope they're like, man, that was a good night. Like, there's nothing better than a packed night at the end of the night and being like, oh, can you play one more? Or that was such a fun night. Or I haven't heard you in X amount of years or whatever else. So that's kind of cool.
Okay. So can I just ask you, we were talking about you DJing and, brown person to brown person. Like I don't think our parents raise us to go be creatives. I think our parents raise us to survive, get a good, just solid job. I'm sure yours wanted you to be the 3, the doctor, the engineer, the lawyer, right?
Engineer.
Yeah, right? So, and you, I don't think you did. Maybe you did go do something else in that after. But like, I just want to know, like, how did we get here? How did you what's the story behind DJ Kav? How did you become a DJ? What was growing up like? Like, tell us a little bit about you.
mostly my brother was DJing, and he was in university. He got his degree.
Yo.
He went to Toronto, left his equipment back here, and I started off, I think I was 13, just started messing around, even though I wasn't supposed to touch his equipment. And that's just, I kind of self-taught myself how to DJ slowly and listening to things, and then listen to radio stations, listen to those DJs, and then just kind of learning the art by myself. And then there's a couple guys that I would see at the clubs who I kind of was like, oh, I like the way that he spins or he spins. I like the sound this person does. And I guess I went about it a really different way because my brother and I, both of us, when we were kids, we always had this, I want to be on the radio kind of thing. So I actually did apply to broadcasting at Mount Royal.
Okay.
Didn't get in for several years in a row. So I took a different way. And how I got into radio was, there was this program director walked into a club with one of my friends who was also on the radio, heard me and said, he needs to be doing a mix show. And then that's how I kind of started the mix show. And then AMP launched off. And he's like, why don't you go on the air? And I was like, I've never been on the air. And he goes, just give it a shot. And I was like, okay. So I did like 3 overnight shifts. And he goes, okay, you're now on the air and you're also the music director. And I just kind of said, what's a music director? Like, I don't know. What are you talking about? And he's like, here's how the meetings work and here's what you're in charge of. And I was like, okay, well, I can do that. So, and that's kind of how it all.
Wow.
Right place, right time, a lot of it.
Yeah.
And also wrong place because Mount Royal. But I do have students that in the past that have come for their practicum to AMP and they're broadcasting students or they want to interview me. I'm like, I don't have a broadcasting degree. I don't have that.
Yeah.
I went to Mount Royal, got a different degree, but I don't have a broadcasting degree.
Right. So, do you think that you would have done anything different or had something different if had you gone and, had the degree under your belt? Because everything else happened for you. You just didn't get the schooling done. So
no, I think I got the experience from the nightclubs and promo and booking shows and concerts. And I just got like a different kind of experience.
Yeah.
And I was happy because I know most people like going to radio or broadcasting schools start off in smaller markets and they work their way up. And at that point in my life, I wasn't really that hungry to do that because I'd already gone a different direction.
Right.
So yeah, I always say it just all kind of worked out. Like how I got here all kind of worked out. So
you must have really good energy or vibes or karma, whatever, people looking out for you because that's like a really cool story and it's a unique story. It's probably, I bet you there's people in radio that were probably mad at you because you didn't go that route. But I will say one thing, you can go to school and do all that and, who knows, maybe you're not good at it. You just had the natural skill. Someone discovered it, right? Found it. You're like that famous supermodel that gets found on the street. That's what happened to you where someone saw you doing your thing and thought, okay, you have the skill, you have the talent. And it's so true because it's not common for DJs and radio hosts to be going on as long as you have as well. You've been doing this for over 10 years, 15, like it's been a while, right?
Yeah, and most people can't make the transition from club to radio or radio to club. So I went the other way. I went club and understood radio. And part of that is you do have to understand they're completely 2 different entities. Like you're not there on the mix down to break brand new songs for 30 minutes and try to discover and try to like, it's a different marketplace, right? Whereas at a club, you have a lot more openness and, you can scratch and do a lot more things at a club because you're an actual DJ. Whereas radio, you're just like, I just want to make people happy, make it as clean as possible and let people just get home without, because you do get people being like, oh, is it skipping? And I'm like, no, scratching. Or, why does the song sound like this? It sounds fast. It's like, no, it's a remix. So you get kind of both perspectives on that side. So
yeah, that's hilarious. So if you weren't DJing, what do you think you'd be doing? Like if this wasn't your career, what would you have done?
Child psychology probably was my second favorite thing. Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah. Yeah. Why that? Why psychology?
I think because, going back to what you said, just being from different background, being new here and seeing what struggles that you go through at that point, and then now being older and having the thought of being able to reach young kids and help them hopefully go through the things that we did, but with some experience and some leadership, I think would have probably been my road there.
Can we talk about your dad? Right?
Sure. Yeah.
Your kid is gorgeous, beautiful. You talk a little bit about this, making, this is why I was sort of thinking segue to being a father, because it was when I became a mom where I started to kind of realize some of oh, wait, I can break barriers. I've been trying to break the ones, maybe things that didn't turn out in the way my past, how I was raised, but I actually don't have to worry about doing it with my parents. I can do it towards my kids, not do the things that maybe, were different for me. And so for you being a dad, like what are the things okay, so before I do, I'll set up. Like for me, I've had to go back to the past a lot being a mom. Like you just can't help but reflect. You're like, oh my gosh, my kid does that thing that I hate about myself all the time. I got that from my mom or my dad, right? So our kids, I feel, connect us to our past. And so for you, becoming a father, like what sort of things have come up for you in terms of, okay, what you didn't get when you grew up versus like what you want to do different for your son?
The biggest thing for me probably is that my dad worked overseas for the majority of my growing up phases, I guess. So I lived with my brother and my mom, and they were still married. He still came back every, 6 months, stayed for a month, went back to work overseas. So I feel like looking back, I missed that gap of having that father. I don't want to make it sound bad because he was a phenomenal father. He is a great father, but my brother was like my male fatherly figure that I kind of looked up, and he's quite a bit older than me. So with intention, I try to be there for my son, present and with him, and spend more time with him than I think that my dad would with me. And he'll tell me, he's like, I not regret, but I wish I was there more for you. Yeah. But I had to work, and we're in a new country and I had to provide. And I'm like, I totally get it. And it took me a while to understand that he made some huge sacrifices in his life for us to have a good life in Canada. And I just want to make sure now that we have a better life in Canada, that I can now be there for my son to kind of close that circle of like, thanks to my dad, I'm here. And now that I'm here, I want to be more present for you.
Totally. And not take privilege of the fact that we got to grow up here. We got to have the life that we did. And you're right. Like our parents were surviving. And some of us say, we get to be at the place where maybe we can be thriving, if not us, our children can. And so, like even for brown guys, I have kids. My brother's quite a bit younger than me, grew up with a lot of boys around, and coming from Surrey, lots of things that we see in our community, in my community. I would imagine we have a lot of similarities, but I don't want to put that. You can say what you want about that, but I just sometimes look at the brown boys and my heart goes out to a lot of them because of some of those misdirections and things that not all of them got. Not to say parents didn't love them or not, but everyone's scenario is different and people grow up. Some people work harder. Some people, get lost in the cracks. So I just, I do have like brown guys that like have started listening, which I really appreciate because it's so hard to get those guys to care to listen to these kinds of things. So for anyone out there listening, or guys of color even, like any feedback or any advice or anything that, you wish you were told, or maybe something valuable you were told that kind of helped you grow up in the way that you did, that you would pass on to the rest of these guys out there.
I think the number one lesson that I learned from, I guess there's two actually, if I could share them. First one was my mom. And I remember I used to come home like crying from school because I couldn't speak English. And of course you get made fun of. Mm-hmm. I remember they, call me whatever they wanted to call me at the time. And my mom would just sit down and have a real conversation being like, and so what if they called you that? And I'm like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, so what? You're human, they're human. You're a human. If they think that way of you, you're still human. You just prove yourself like this. And I was just like, and it just negated any negative stuff that was said to me at that moment. Again, maybe it was a different day or whatever else would be different. But at that moment, it really hit home that I was like, oh yeah, we're all the same. They just have this vision of me of whatever, that I'm this or that I'm that. Yeah. So that was definitely one piece. And I think the second one is the barriers that we have. I don't think anyone should put barriers on you. And I'll just give a quick 30-second example. My high school counselor, worst experience of my life. You have that exit interview of what you're going to do in your life and everything else. Yeah. And I remember him coming and being like, so what do you want to do? I'm like, oh, like you said, every family's like, oh, you're going to be an engineer, a lawyer, or whatever. I'm like, I don't know yet, but I'm going to go to university and try that. And he's like, yeah, you're not going to make it in university. And I was like, what? And he goes, English is your second language. We have to get real here. And I've been here since grade 2. So English, I went through the whole system learning English. And I was like, what? Anyways, conversation went pretty rotten. Mm-hmm. I went home to my mom, and the next day my mom went there and she tore him a new one. Oh, your mom's she's like, you don't tell my son what he can. Oh, she's a badass. Yeah, exactly. You don't, but see, like comments like that or conversations by adults that influence us, like the school system is a great example. And we're experiencing that even today with our boys. My kids are mixed, but they look brown, and we're in a community where there's not a lot of us. And so
they're learning all sorts of different things as well. But once you get pegged a certain way, and I've been trying to help my kids understand, because they're like, I don't understand why I'm the one getting in trouble, or why this is happening, or why that's happening. And so we've had some conversations about some of, like, how do you talk to them about the way the world looks at you with helping them see at such a young age, right? Like, they're not going to fully grasp that, but they can feel something's a bit different sometimes when they get approached or talked to or whatnot. And I think that's the key, is like, we need adults like your mom around us when we're kids, that people are feeding this information. And many of us grow up feeling and believing a lot of that stuff, like that whole imposter syndrome. I'm like, it must have been a person of color that came up with that one, because you walk into a room and you feel like you got to work harder or whatnot, because people put these things in your head. So I think it's amazing that you had your mom there to work through some of that with you as well. If she wasn't there, I don't know. It's interesting, the paths we take. Nice to hear your story, because it's like, yeah, that happens more than we like to hear, but it does happen a lot.
Yeah, I owe her a lot. I mean, she walked me through a lot in my lifetime, for sure.
Yeah.
And she was also the one that supported me in music and was like, hey, well, you just make sure you go to get your education first. And if music works out, great, but you have to get backup, right? And I was like, okay, well, that's fair.
Yeah. Yeah. And then she's a big supporter now too.
Oh, yeah. She loves it, yeah.
She's just so proud of where you are now with all this. Can we do middle fingers up segment? So I'd like to ask you what you want to put your middle fingers up to today.
I think it's a lot of like, it's still and the judgments, and whether it's like sexism or racism, it just needs to stop. I know it's very vague, and it's like, oh, it's not as bad. And it's like, there's no need for it whatsoever. And it's, I guess the part that really affects me now is that I got through it. I'm fine. I'm like, whatever, you can call me whatever you want to do, say whatever you want. I really don't care. Like, it completely just, you say it one ear out the other ear. Yeah. What I don't want is my son to go through it. And that's the part that kills me, is I don't want him to go to the same experience as I did for that. And I think a lot of it is because as parents, we want to protect our kids. And it's like, yeah, they're going to fall. Yeah, they're going to do this. But I just don't want him to deal with that emotional burden of the isms.
It's true. And the reality is he's going to. So then, not my son. So the best thing we can do with those worries and fears is like, okay, how do we get ahead of that? Not control it, but prepare it. Because I'm with you. Like, I'd like to think I got over it, but I'm realizing now in my 40s, there's a lot of racial trauma, man. And it was hidden and coming out in all sorts of different ways. Like, you simulate and then you're like, oh, but I'm different. I'm a cool brown girl. I married a white guy, so I'm practically white. We do these things, I think, that sometimes that help us feel like we did turn out fine. And sometimes I wonder, like, did we? Because we just found a different way to cope with it, but we still don't speak up, or all these sorts of things that didn't make us turn out. But you're right, when we have these kids, then we're like, okay, now we have to do something about it. And I don't know what the thing to do about it is. The best thing I'm finding is, like, the more of us talk about it and get it out there, hopefully the more of us can come together and speak up for each other, with each other, support each other, because it hasn't gotten better, it's just gotten more subtle. Right? So we're not getting the same outwardly yelling, derogatory things. Maybe once in a while you get that. We're getting a lot of the microaggressions and subtle things that a lot of people can't pick up on or whatnot, but just know that they're feeling off. So I think I hear you. Like, people have to stop, but the way that they're going to stop is we have to step it up. You have so much influence out there, DJ Kav. Like, you are, 5 minutes with you, but always listening to you on the radio. People know this about you. You have an energy. You have a way about you. People listen to you. You have quite an influence. So I think maybe your son was meant to sort of inspire you to make a push or do something for the people out there, because I think there's a lot of yous and me's out there that say the same thing of, yeah, well, it's fine, or I'll just go to a different bar. Like, I hear that a lot. Like, well, right. We'll just go somewhere else. That's what happened to me at the National when I was there with my sister. Like, the guy told us he wasn't going to serve us because of our color. And it when I looked to my brother and his friends, they were just like, oh, we'll go somewhere else. And I'm like, what the fuck, guys? They're like, well, we can't say anything, because if we say something, then we have nowhere to be. To me, that's like a script that we have to sort of like challenge ourselves with and figure out, there's a kind way to say something, but we do have to speak up and so I appreciate that. I had anything else you want to add to that? Like, to your middle fingers up?
The only other thing I'll say is I actually feel sorry for a lot of people that have those views, because I think they're missing out on a huge portion of the population that are great people. There's great people in every race, and I think they're missing out because they have these judgments towards people color of whatever color they are.
Yeah.
And that's what kind of makes me feel like, okay, you suck, but I also feel sorry for you. So I have almost like an empathy now towards them that I never did before. But it went from hatred to empathy, I guess.
Yeah. You matured. Like, that's growing up, right? We grow up. I know. I hear you. It's a great way of managing it sometimes, because personalizing it it's only impacted me in a bad way when I personalize it, right? So you get to this place where you feel bad for I have friends recently were going through this whole friendship pending thing where you're just like, I don't hate you. We obviously had this friendship. We had love for each other, but if you're going to respond with, and that was actually my middle fingers up, was people that respond with buts. So, you tell someone you had a hard day at work and someone's like, but you still have a job. And you're like, fuck you. And you're like, oh man, I have all this anxiety. And then people say, but just try to think positive. And then, you have people when you're telling them your like personal experience with racial experiences, racism, or the isms like you're saying, and then people have a whole different view with, but is that really how it happened? Or but that person's so nice. And my middle finger is up or to that word, but like can we join people when they're talking to us about these things versus trying to prove to them that didn't happen, that person didn't call you that shitty name, that person didn't treat you that way. If someone's telling you they've had that experience, responding with a but in there is, I think it's something to lean into. It's a personal ego defense mechanism. Definitely encourage us to lean into that, because that's how it is for me. When I say but, it's because I'm getting worked up a bit about something. If someone out there is telling you they've had a shitty day or someone was racist to them, please don't respond with but. Please say, I believe you and I care for you and I'm sorry to hear this, or say nothing. That's my PSA today. So that's what I'm going to say about that.
I'm going to use that. That's good. That's really good.
The but?
Yeah.
Well, sometimes I just sit here and I think, and it was an experience we had recently too. And I was like, oh, there's a lot of buts in these questions, this conversation, which just shuts you down, right? Like, it's like, I don't think we're going to get anywhere if you're going to respond to me that way, or I'm going to respond that way to you. Okay. Yeah. So I'm
nothing better than swearing.
Fucking rights. Thank you. Did you ever have a swear slip on the radio?
I have not. I've never sworn in front of my parents, but I have sworn in front of my son, and he's picking up some words here and there, mostly from my partner. Oh, but it's so funny. It's we never swear around the house. Like we just weren't allowed to.
Yeah.
So now hearing him and just kind of giving him that pass, it's just hilarious to me. But
we weren't allowed to swear either. But yet my dad and my mom had all the best Punjabi swear words all the time. So I was like, so it's just English we're not allowed to swear in because it sounds better in our language. Like, I don't understand, because those are colorful words you're using. It's way worse than the same F word, but exactly. Yeah. I don't want to say bye to you, but I know you have to go to work and people are going to want to hear you and see you and be the musical director and all the stuff that you have to go do. So let's just wrap up a couple of things. Lastly, I'd like to know from you where people can tune in and find you, and any cool things coming up in the near future that you can tell us about.
September is pretty slow as far as Halloween will be a big one. Nothing booked yet. We'll figure it out. I really do take it month by month.
Okay.
I just have like monthly of what's happening. Obviously New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
And then I am working. Well, I've been asked to work on another tour next year from mid-January to mid-February. Obviously it's not confirmed. It's all still up in the air, but if that happens again, it'd be great. This past year, that Ice Cube thing was definitely the highlight of my DJ career.
I bet it was.
So that was really cool. Radio station. I'm there Monday through Friday, 2 to 6. Sounds on Thursdays, 8:30 and 5 p.m.
Love it. Also, side note, how was Ice Cube? Was he fun to be around?
It was the most unbelievable experience I've had in my life.
Yeah? How so?
He's there for every soundtrack. He's like very involved in how the lights are and what the stage looks like. I probably didn't meet him till the second or third show, I think it was. And then, because I was doing after parties and trying to like double dip. And then when I finally met him, he was so kind and said so many nice things that after that, I was like, I'm done. It doesn't matter what someone says to me on Instagram anymore. I got validation from Ice Cube.
I know. Like, you don't need anything else. You don't. He's one of my favorite artists too. So I was on your page and I saw that and I was like, oh my God, that must have been, do you have other highlights? Other than that, another one?
I mean, I've been lucky enough to meet and see and talk to a lot of artists, and in the past, it was always a struggle to be like, I don't know, like Rihanna was really cool, or Ed
Yeah.
Sheeran, or whatever. But after the whole life, because you spend so much time with HQ,
Yeah.
like I was on the road for 2 weeks with the whole crew, right? So
That's different.
yeah, it was just really good crew. They all embraced me. You know, they came back for Stampede again. First thing, they come on stage and, you know, say hi to me and stuff like that. Like, it was just really cool.
See?
I still keep in touch with a couple of them. Like, it's really cool. So.
That's amazing. That's so cool. Your kid's gonna think you're so cool when you grow up. My dad knows Ice Cube, so that's my kids have.
I brought him on stage.
I
brought my kid on stage for sound check. So I was like, I gotta at least have him on stage to.
That's so cool. Anyway. Yeah. My kids will now be. I'll tell them I know someone that knows Ice Cube, so then they'll be like, "Wow, you're kind of cool." Okay, and then like lessons of all the years doing your job. What's the biggest lesson you've learned?
It's the number one lesson, which was just like be in the moment and don't plan anything. I really believe that has kept my longevity as long as it has. Is that like when I go to work, I'm still very excited to go there and see what that night brings. And some nights are great, some nights are not great, and you just got to make the best out of it. There's been nights that I've played in very small places that aren't the best crowds as far as like capacity wise, but in my head, I'm like, okay, here's the challenge. Yeah. Can I get these people to dance and have a good time and walk away? Because now it's really more personal.
Yeah.
And there's the bigger show. So I think for me, it's always been like having that good attitude of going into it, being like, this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
I don't work a 9-to-5 job. I never wanted to.
Yeah.
This is like my dream. I'm living my dream, I guess.
You are living your dream.
So, yeah.
Oh, that's so sweet. So for anyone else out there that wants to also live their dream, what advice do you have for them?
You know, everything that I would say is very cliche because every single sports athlete, every single singer says it all the time. And I'm like, keep believing in yourself and doing what you do and really network and try to connect with people that in that industry. And you might have 99 no's, but it takes one yes to at least make a connection and start talking to that person and guide you and give you some advice back, and you can take it or leave it. I've had, 5 or 6 people that I would say I've connected with that I still talk to or that inspired me, and I kept in contact with them throughout the years. And I always, once a year or twice a year, I'll reach out and be like, hey, hope you're doing well.
Oh, yeah.
Always on my mind because I remember I learned this from you, or I remember this memory from you. So
you're so thoughtful. I'll send you a message. Like every week, don't forget about me, DJ Kav. Hi, how are you? Yeah, right? Just, I don't think it's cliche at all. I think the believing part, like it has to start with us as individuals. And I think that's a reminder. I think we think the simplest things are just, like, oh yeah, no, it's too easy, of course, but it's hard. It's hard to believe in yourself. And I think that's a message that we have to constantly remind ourselves with. So that's a good one. Okay, lastly, call to action. If there was one thing and only one thing people listening today were going to take from their chat with you, what would you hope that would be?
Oh, that's a tough question. That's really tough. I guess my surrounding would say that I'm a grateful person. So, I know there's ups and downs for everybody else, but I always try to find that, again, cliche, that silver lining of what's going on. So, it could be a bad day, a bad week, but you just keep persevering and believing in yourself, and you'll get through that, because not everything's bad all the time, right? You'll have bumps up and down, and know that after the bump, up again. And I feel that that's kind of how I've tried to live my life when you've had a bad, few days, few weeks, few hours, few months. It's not always going to be like that. So.
Totally. I love that. And I think the second Inside Out taught us, like, we can't always be happy too. So when we are in those bad moments, we're trying to get out of them quickly. But I think we have to kind of, like you said, be present and work through these moments and emotions. And sometimes we're just striving to always be happy, and that's just not possible. So it's also, I think, accepting a bit of that. Okay. Is there anything else that you wish I had asked you or that you wanted to say today that maybe we didn't get a chance to chat before we say goodbye?
No, that'll be round 2 someday.
Oh my gosh. You said it before I even did. Oh my gosh. My armpits are sweating again now. Yes, round 2. I can't wait. I'm so excited already. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. It meant a lot when you immediately agreed. Like you said, some of us get 99 no's. When we get a yes from someone like you, it is very meaningful. And so you're paying it forward for the rest of us. And I really appreciate that. Thank you for being here today.
Thanks for having me. Next time we'll talk about all the dirt I have on some artists.
Oh, I know. I wanted to not get into it because I was like, I want to know you. But you know what? Now we're going to do that next time. I can't wait.
I'll just put on mask on so it looks like it's somebody else.
Oh, yeah.
It'll be a whole new segment.
A whole thing. And we'll get a whole back. Okay. We'll have to be in the same room together too. How about that? Yeah? Yeah, perfect.
Sounds good.
For everyone listening, these conversations are all door openers. If there's anything you'd like to add or contribute, you know where to find us. Thank you again to DJ Kav for coming on and spending time with us here at Middle Fingers Up. Thank you, DJ Kav. Have a good one.
Bye. You too.